But before my foraging walks, I always give a little bit of health and safety and a little bit of conservation advice. And this should be no different, really, because essentially this is what this is going to be. This is going to be a kind of virtual foraging walk. So firstly, the law. It's illegal to pick from a SSSI, so just don't do it. It's also illegal to dig up a route without the landowner's permission, so try and get hold of the landowner's permission if you want to get, say, some burdock roots. And conservation-wise, let's think about the birds, let's think about the insects, and think about the whole scheme of everything. And you can be selfish and bring it all back to the human being. So, if you overpick, say, an elder for the elderflower, then there's no elderberries later in the year for the birds. The numbers of birds might drop off. That means the number of caterpillars and other insects might go up. If that goes up, then the number of our crops that are viable goes down. That affects our food prices. That affects us. So think about it before you overpick. Think about how much your shopping is going to cost. So that's a good way, I think, of just sort of getting across that it's all interconnected. You want to know that there's enough there for you for next time you go out picking. So say, for instance, mugwort. I can remember the first time I came across mugwort and wanted to use it for brewing. I only found one plant, so I left it completely alone, and then I come back in subsequent years to that area and there's loads. And so it does spread if you leave a plant. So again, think about yourself, think about how much you really want to be searching all over the place looking for these plants. So if you count 1, 2, 3, start picking from the third, and then that leaves 2 plants to grow and to continue the cycle so that you can come back year after year. And I think that about does it, really. Oh yeah. And lastly, again, this is about yourself. So lastly, don't pick anything if you're not sure what it is. I mean, it's just stuff. There's a saying, you get old foragers and bold foragers, but you don't get old bold foragers. So basically what that's saying is, you know, don't just go out and say, oh, I think that is such and such a plant. Pick it and eat it. I know on a few occasions, 3 occasions I can count, that people have thought hemlock was yarrow. They are quite different plants, really, when you get to know them, but you have to get to know them, and that's the point. So use apps, use books, use this video, use everything in your disposal to make sure you're 110% sure about what you're picking before you put it into a beer, or before you eat it, before you do anything with it. That way you can stay alive for the next year, because, you know, it's important that you stay alive for the next year as well. So yeah, I think that'll do for all the sort of boring legally bits and the conservation bits and all the rest of it. So enjoy. The rest of the video now will be about where to find the plants. So it's a kind of virtual foraging walk. Hedge, jack, hedge, jack, jack by hedge. Yeah, jack by the hedge, you find it by a hedge. This plant is great in salads. I always pick a few leaves. It can be a bit quite spicy. And by spicy I really mean kind of mustardy, just sort of a strong flavour. So you don't want to overdo it, you don't want to have too much. flowers there will come out bright yellow like a dandelion flower. You want dandelion? You can't handle the dandelion. Okay, maybe you can. Here's a dandelion. You can use the roots. The leaves are good in salads, or you can use them in place of spinach. They're a little bit bitter and they take a bit of getting used to, but with other the dandelion flower is a great flavouring for a drink, or they can go straight. But the rest of it are nice. At this point they've gone, obviously, when they're all going to the dandelion clock. Don't try and eat those. Dandelion and burdock. I'll have to give you all the recipe for that. Delicious. So if only there was smell-o-vision. This plant is one of my favourites. This is tansy, and it's my favourite in gin. It's my favourite. You mix it, make a syrup with it. So I have a few favourite plants, and they all seem to have thujone in it. And thujone is a kind of naughty chemical. It's a chemical that too much of it can cause like convulsions and sort of death, and you know, things that you don't like. They're not good for you, you know. But just the right amount, and it causes, I don't know, I think there's a sort of euphoria, there's a sort of just a nice pleasant feeling that I get from it. Obviously I don't have too much, but thujone is the chemical. It's in sage, so it's in Paxo, but it's also in wormwood, so that means it's in absinthe, and it's in vermouth. And it's part of the reason why absinthe was thought to have been banned was because of thujone. I've written a whole article about it. Anyway, here is tansy. Introducing. So late in the year there've been nice yellow flowers on this. I'll show you a botanical picture here. But this stuff spreads like anything, which is great for the forager. But the smell, yeah, the smell, what is it? So, let's see what it smells like. So yeah, when I've done foraging walks before, people have said, that smell reminds me of childhood. And it's like, where did you grow up? By a river. Ah, okay. And then you put it together and it's a scent that's reminiscent of something. I think it's such a strong scent. It's one that gets stuck in your head, or in your nose, or your brain, or wherever smells get stuck. But there, anyway. Tansy. And I'll whip up a cocktail with it later. I call it Tansy Dream. I don't know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how the hell do I make a syrup? Where is an old video of Andy without a beard showing us how to make a syrup? If only that existed next. Here's what you need to make chamomile syrup. What you need is a mug of tea with an infuser in it, or you can use a tea bag, chamomile tea bag, some chamomile and a shot of vodka, some sugar, and of course some hot water. So I'm going to put a teaspoon of the chamomile into the cup. Let's make it 2. Fairly strong syrup. So there's 2 teaspoons of chamomile in there, roughly, maybe 1.5 actually. Pour in hot water, and then just leave this to infuse for 3 minutes. Now I'll use that time to recite some of my homegrown poetry to you. I wandered lonely as an Andy, over hills and across meadows, over here, over there, and I foraged back with a pear. The pear was bright, the pear was scrumptious, the pear was there just to be lumptious. Lumptious might not be a word, but it's something I feel, something I've heard, something I know, something I see. A pear is there, just for me. Right, so that should be
a bit more infused there, and you see it's changed colour. Now, it's about half a cup, so the rest of it, I don't know how much you can see here, but basically then with half a cup, it's about 250 ml in the normal mug, which is an American cup size, and you need to put roughly the same amount of sugar in to make a good cocktail syrup in. So if you just keep piling it up until the cup fills up, that should roughly be 125 grams of sugar, or half a cup of sugar. So just keep going. I'm going to just pour this in, and there we go. Right, that's that filled up, and then just stir like mad. And once this is infused, once this is all done, you'll have a cocktail syrup. Just leave it to cool, and add your shot of vodka. Well, actually, you'll evaporate off if I add it now. So you add the vodka or botanist gin, and that will just help preserve it for a bit longer. You can't add an extra couple of months. I mean, sugar already helps preserve it for a while, but a shot of vodka, a bit of alcohol, but stronger the alcohol the better. You know, you don't need much. You don't need much. But then remember not to serve this to children. There we go. And that is how quick and simple it is to make a syrup. So I've made caramel syrup there in less time than it takes to recite some amazing poetry.
Next up is some burdock. This time of year it's looking quite big. Looks like a kind of elephant's ear, but this plant will be no good because look, if you look straight in, you can see that the seed stem is starting to come out of the ground. That means it's a second year plant, so the root will start to be really woody and not very nice. So have a look near that plant. There's always, or tends to always be, more burdock plants around, like first year plants, so ones that aren't going to seed. But it's illegal to dig up a burdock root without the landowner's permission, so make sure you seek that first before you start digging away. It always seems to be the case whenever you go out picking for things that if you just keep looking, you'll find better examples. So once you're in the ballpark area, if you see sort of smaller plants, especially things like burdock, then keep looking and you'll find bigger plants. I know it's not rocket science, but I don't know, I think it's worth knowing these things when you're a novice forager, when you're first starting out, that you don't have to pounce on the first plant you found. You know, get to know the area, keep looking, and eventually you will come across a much bigger. That's going to be much more rewarding. Look at the size of that root. That root is going to be much better than that little one that I've just picked. So it'd be worth coming back down here with the spade. Yeah, great edibility, like a dandelion. You wash it and then roast it, and that's lovely like that. Or you can grate it and stick it into salads, but it makes you fart. It's got inulin in it, which builds up in your stomach and makes you fart a bit. Right, if you've made, look at all these flowers. If you've ever made dandelion champagne or elderflower champagne, now I'd suggest try brassica champagne. But grab all these yellow flowers, obviously leave a few so that the next generation can go along, but grab a load of yellow flowers and use them in place of elderflower or dandelions in a recipe for any drink, champagne, cordial, whatever, and you get a kind of gingery flavour. You don't get that brassica flavour. It's really nice and really worth a go. Right then people, the next up we have common hogweed. There's nothing common about this one. This is an absolutely delicious plant. Now, I helped teach some bartenders a few years ago, and they went on to win a cocktail competition due to its flavour, and that was from the seeds. If you're lucky, you might just about get some of the stalks. Pick them before the leaves unfurl at this time of year. They'll look like sort of kitten's paw. They're delicious. I like to fry them up. There's a recipe on my website, theotherandyhamilton.com. So just search for hogweed on theotherandyhamilton.com and you'll find an excellent recipe. for a kind of Turkish breakfast made with hogweed. And it's the seeds that you're after. Yes, this is the same video, it's so good I thought I'd use it twice. The seeds, later in the year, you use those as a kind of spice. So you wait till they're really hard and not green and sort of papery, and they'll just come off to the touch. And yeah, use them. I use them with cooking with carrots. So like roast some carrots, put a few on top. Use them like, say, cardamom seeds. You know, like that kind of carroty flavour, or caraway seeds. You know, that's a carrot family flavour, and it goes really well with other members of the carrot family, like celery or carrots. But some people won't like them because they've got the same chemical in it that makes coriander taste soapy. So if they taste soapy, you're genetically disposed to that soapy flavour. So if someone in your family doesn't taste soap, it might not be from your family. Next up is ivy leaf toad flax, and you find it on walls all over the place. Here's some. Just a few leaves in a salad's delicious, but also a few leaves if you're making some ferment. So add a little bit to your sauerkraut. Absolutely delicious. So this tree here is hawthorn. Let's have a close up. You can see May blossom, also known as, so just heading into May, covered in blossom. And the smell is not very strong on this one, but it's sort of Turkish delight, almost cyanide, so apple pip. So look at the leaf. So you're identifying it, and you're also looking for thorns as well. Have we got any thorns? Yeah, there we go. Actually, let's just bung in another botanical drawing, that'd be much easier. Here you go. So yeah, obviously you'll get the red berries later on. They're really nice as ketchup. Just replace the tomatoes in a tomato ketchup recipe. But for now we're concentrating on the blossom, that heady scent of the blossom. Stick it in vinegar, and then you've got hawthorn vinegar. Let that infuse for maybe a couple of weeks or so, and then it will just come through, and then it gives you a nice little scented vinegar to stick over all of these things that I've been telling you to use for a salad. So that's hawthorn. Have a look at that leaf. You know, I'm sure you've seen this. This is ubiquitous in the hedgerow. And then there's a glaringly obvious one, and that's nettles. Here we go. I don't suppose you need to know what stinging nettles look like. But here we have some. So pick the top 4 or 5 leaves this time of year, and you can make soup. You can make soup. It's probably the best one. I like to bulk out other things, and if I'm using dandelion leaves in place of spinach, then I'll put a few nettle leaves in it as well, and it sort of adds a little nuttier texture, and that's it. So just these few leaves at the top, you see, sort of up to the edge there. You can't see where I'm pointing though, can you? Yeah, sorry, down to that leaf would be too far, so that's nettles. And over to me to tell you about the uses for beer.
Okay, with sound. So I guess one of the beers that gets talked about a lot as far as wild beers are concerned is nettle beer. Now this lot would probably be enough for a beer, but you know, it's going to take you a while, isn't it? And wear gloves, fill up carrier bags. What you also have to watch out for, let's see if I can find any, all sorts of different things called the nettle home. So there we go, there's some aphids living on there, you can see those. So obviously where you've got aphids, you've got ladybirds, you've got tons living on there. So the whole ecosystem, but there's also quite often under the leaf, there's things that predate aphids. So obviously the ladybird on your nettles, so just have a quick look before you go through them all, just to make sure you've still got butterflies. They're all right, and they're quite nice, worth keeping. But yeah, there's enough nettles here to give a beer. All that. Where else have we got? Oh, there's a dandelion amongst theirs. That's another one. Right, I have had someone on a foraging walk say to me once, is this ground elder? Because it looks like elder and it's on the ground. Now don't start making things up like that. That's kind of getting a piece of knowledge and then throwing it together with another piece of knowledge and not being true. This is elder. Ground elder is another plant altogether that has leaves similar to the elder, and that's, I think, and it also has umbiferae flowers like an umbrella. So that is where that comes from, I think. But you get elder trees in scrappy areas like this. They're often known as a weed tree, which is unfortunate because they're an amazing tree. I always take some flowers when I have a bit of a cold, and that seems to help. Start having some elderflower champagne or elderflower cordial at the start of this season when hay fever starts, and that seems to really help. And you know, it's just a nice drink as well. So the councils, because it's called a weed tree and it does spread a bit, councils here in Bristol will weed it out and pull it out. Now there's supposed to be a curse on the tree, so if you don't ask the witch's permission, the Hewa Moa, the spirit that lives in the tree, if you don't ask their permission before you start picking, then you might be cursed. So I wonder how many council workers have been cursed.
Yeah, and that curse is supposed to be pretty bad. I've heard of cradles rocking in the middle of the night and screaming, and yeah, not great curse. Anyway, elder flower often found by rivers. If you can't see it sort of near the ground because it's not ground elder, then just make sure that you start to look up. And you'll be blessed with loads of elder flowers, and there's the heady scent that gets out at this time of year, and it's just, I think it's synonymous with summer. It's said that the flowers come out to signal the start of the summer, and the berries come out to signal the end of the summer. Thanks for watching. That's the end of the video. I think that's the best place to stop, and maybe let's just zoom in on a strange man in the distance. Thanks for watching. Alright, I've been Andy Hamilton. Find more at theotherAndyHamilton.com. Thanks very much. Oh, and elderflower to finish. Great stuff. Ta-da!